Industry Angel Podcast. We hear from the best business minds across the globe. Entrepreneurs, social influencers, marketing mavens, and sales rock stars. We've got them all. Here comes your weekly dose of inspiration with your host, Ian Farah.
Welcome back. We are live. This has been promoted as the 200th episode, so that's good. That's like a celebration of, if you like. But I think this will take us to episode 199. And what we could do for episode 200, if you fancy, Misha and I are thinking about going live from here, and then just you guys can ask us whatever you want. Misha will grill me about stuff and we'll just have a laugh. So we're thinking about that for 200, but this is the 200 celebration. And it's also the celebration of International Podcast Day. And we've got one of the co-founders of that joining us at the bottom of the show because of the time difference, because Dave is in California. So actually, in terms of schedule, we've got Russell Dalgleish hopefully going to be joining us. I know it's Scottish International Week, Business Week, and Russell's busy with that. So I'm hoping he's going to join us at 2. If not, you're going to hear me ramble for another half an hour. Anneka Hicks is going to be great, and we're going to really take on the subject. Remember, Tony Robinson joined us last week. We're going to really take on the topic of the excluded 3 million with Anneka. And we then got Ed Goodman, who's going to join us. And then we've got Dave Lee, as I mentioned earlier on. So let me just do some thank yous, though. So what have we got? I must thank Team D, that sent us a bunch of gifts for our 200th, including lots of champagne. So we've got Bollinger that arrived. And our Misha said, Bollinger, that'll be nice. I'm going to add some orange to it. So absolutely wasted on Misha. So if you're watching Misha, you should just give me that back and we'll drink it in the office. What else have we got? I must thank Tony. We talked about Tony earlier on there. Let me just grab this out of my bag. 2 seconds. We have Tony's Happypreneur book. So Tony nicely sends me this, look, with I love little inscriptions and signed copies. So Tony sent me that. Obviously, we spoke about that last week. You can grab that from TonyRobinsonOBA.com. Do me a favor, if you're watching now across Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, pop that in the comments. Let me know if you're here, and link out to Tony's book, because I can see our Katie there. Happy International Podcast Day. Ian, thank you so much, Katie. I'm excited, and thanks for the 200. Yeah, fantastic. Katie, do me a favor. Could you put TonyRobinsonOBE.com in the comments, please? Because people can link out and grab Tony's book, which is well worth a read. And drop them an Amazon review. That would be great, because we all like these reviews, don't we? Share the love. What else have we got? So I asked on Twitter if you could send me 3 things that come to mind when we're talking about the show. And I had loads of great feedback, so thanks so much for that. Who did we have? We had Peter Davison, Laura Foster, Laura Jane Forms, Simon Raybould, being cheeky as usual, Natalie Paris, Jenny Brady, Dylan McKee, Darren Tate, Laura Midders, and the ever-supportive Team D. Thanks for getting in touch on Twitter. So let me know what platform you're currently watching us through. Let me know in the comments. As you can see, our Katie's left one there, which is great for me to understand where you are, what you're doing. And I just love the engagement, don't I? So crack on. What else have we got then? Been through that. Yes, I think that's about it. I think we're good to go now. I can see our first guest in the green room there, looking very pensive. I think we should bring him in shortly. Let's give him a bio, though. Okay, I've got. It's a big, long bio. This one, mind. Okay, then our first guest has enjoyed the benefits of a highly successful international career in the tech sector, and now focuses his efforts on supporting owners and boards of companies to devise and implement growth strategies. He's the founding manager partner of the advisory group Exalta Capital Partners, and founding chairman of the Scottish Business Network, the global network supporting Scottish business leaders. Welcome to the industry angel, Russell Dalgleish.
Hi there.
Now, whoever wrote all that down and sent me that, Russell? Was that you, sir? That's one hell of an intro, man.
But one of the team.
And then one of my team passes it to me and I've got to read it all out. You're doing some great things. I tell you what I really want to dig into, though. Scottish Business Network, what's going down, brother? You are busy this week.
Yeah, so it's our annual event. So each year, this is the fourth year we've done this. So each year we promote international opportunities for Scottish companies globally. So we're running 64 events throughout the week, taking in, and 8 of them live from the different cities in the States, including Salt Lake and Chicago and Houston and And down under, we're doing Brisbane and Auckland as well. So Scottish Business Network is about a community of about 10,000 globally, which work together to support Scottish businesses secure opportunities beyond the border. So beyond the border includes Newcastle.
So hang on, all this is happening this week?
Yeah, I've just broken out of one session to do this, then I'll go back in again.
I was going to say, so what are you doing here with us?
But this is the wonder of digital. You know, I just sit here in my chair and just switch from event to event. So we've just done a LinkedIn Live, and then we did a training session looking at how people use LinkedIn today. And then we go on to, there's a New York event, starts in 45 minutes, and then Washington.
Wow, is this so? Do you normally do this in person, Russell? Is it a conference that you get together?
Yeah, so last year we did, I think, about 30 live events around the UK. The largest one was 80 people in the iconic Bank of Scotland building in Edinburgh. So we had 80 people there. And currently we're sitting at 845 registered for our events this year. So that's tenfold increase. And I think it shows, it's this transformation we've all been through because of digital. Yeah. So because we were building a global organization, we've been communicating through different digital tools for the last 18 months. Microsoft Office, Skype, and then onto WebEx, and then onto whatever was next. So we were quite well positioned when this happened to switch over. So we did our first live online event for all our members on this, I think it was just at the start of April. And we spoke to Scots in China to see what was happening there at that time when it was a focus. And we just kind of kept on ramming on since then.
Fantastic. So, you know, the in-person event, Russell, was that a paid event? Do people have to buy tickets to go to the conference?
No, we're all Scottish, so we don't pay for anything. We're going to get people turning up if I ask them to buy a ticket. That's never good.
So
we built a cultural organization. So it's what they call a diaspora group. So we've put on 132 events in London and never paid a penny, because what we did was we used large institutions in London which had boardrooms that were going free in an evening, and we would arrange to bring together Scottish business figures at the events, and they would provide us with the room, some drinks and some nibbles. So that model we've used for 5 years. So that model came to an end as the pandemic started, and I doubt we'll ever go back to that again, because who's going to want a bunch of strangers in their office after hours? So I think now, because digital is leading to so many advantages to us because of this international outreach. I heard if there's anyone watching this in technology, readjust your strategy about the Valley. There's never been a better time to build connections in California. So traditionally what would have happened is that you would have to really build a network in California. You'd be looking at 2 or 3 weeks a month for maybe 9 months in Silicon Valley, but now no one can go. So you're all on the same level playing field. So we've got to adjust those targets as the opportunities come about.
That's interesting, Russell. So tell me a little bit more, let me drill into that. So are you suggesting that people want to partner or collaborate with firms in the Valley that can't get it? How do they begin that?
So that's where we fit in for companies. So we've built a global network. Ours is based around about a diaspora group, so Scots, or what we call affinity Scots, so people who like Scotland. So we have connections now in the top 200 companies in the US, and then similar in other countries. So for example, if you came to me and said you were a tech company in the pharma sector, you were planning on being in Atlanta, we could get you meetings with large pharma companies there, because we would reach out to our Scottish contacts there and say there's a Scottish company coming. Why wouldn't you meet? Are you originally from Newcastle itself, or?
I'm the right side of the Tyne, Russell, so I'm nearer Sunderland and Newcastle, so I won't get into football politics.
Let's get Sunderland, right? So if I phoned you up and if I sent you a message, say on LinkedIn, and I said, hi, I'm a young man, my father was born in Sunderland, I'm now running a tech company in the US, would you be willing to take a call from me? So the likelihood of you taking that call based on that cultural alignment is much greater than not.
So is this a bit like Chambers of Commerce kind of thing, or?
I'm not sure. I think it's a bit like how business groups were at the start. So if you think when businesses first started to come together around about the Industrial Revolution, the people that made up these groups all ran their own businesses. Whereas today, a number of the business groups we've got have become like events companies, and there's a lot of administrators involved. So everyone involved with us runs their own business. So they are business people primarily, and then they do this as an interest area. So we now have 11 ambassadors around the world. So we have Scots in cities in different parts of the world who are volunteering probably about 1 day a week to help to promote Scottish business in their area or to provide insight. Within 2 years, we will all likelihood have covered most global cities by putting an ambassador on the ground. We then pull that together with a technology fit on top of that, which allows all the Scots to be connected. And then we have a collaboration platform, which allows us to collaborate with organizations from pipe bands in Canada to technology groups in Shanghai who have an interest in Scotland.
Fantastic stuff. So you said about this tech fit. So I imagine, is there some sort of platform where members can jump on, share profiles? Is there tenders and things, calls to work? And
so what we based it all on a platform from a Glasgow company called Very Connect. So we used but we did an analysis of all the membership platforms in the world, and this one came up as the best. And at that stage, I think it was the only one that was compliant with GDPR. So we use it and that provides us with the interaction between members. But what we're doing is we're continually, we're just a tiny little not-for-profit, but we're building on our roadmap to increase the technology component of what we're doing to allow instant access by video with Scots around the world. So as it becomes a lot easier to do this.
Fantastic stuff. So what's some of the success stories, Russell?
I suppose the success stories are typically where companies have partnered or won commercial deals that have allowed them to grow the business. So it's really interesting. So that all the success stories tend to be commercially sensitive. Okay. So all we can really say is the fact that we're growing the network continually and surviving quite nicely at this time, because this could have been a major threat to us and to the businesses we work with. But examples would be we've helped companies win deals up to the £500,000 mark. Mm-hmm. So here in the US is a particularly strong, important market for us at the moment. So as the Brexit talks come to an end, we've been providing a voice for Scotland in Washington. So we're doing a lot there as well.
Fantastic. So how does it wash its face, Russell? Do members pay to be involved?
So there's members pay £400 per person to be a part of this. And we're about to launch a donation-based fundraise to allow us to accelerate what we're doing, because I'd like to get to that global coverage quicker. Yeah. And there's kind of a need to do that now because, we think it's going to be, this year's written off, next year's probably looking to the spring before we start to see any kind of management of what we're currently dealing with that would allow people to go back to really frequent business travel, particularly outside the UK. But even at that, I think we have COP26 in Scotland next year, and I think the pressure that we're now starting to see coming on business to adjust the way we work in order to attempt to address some of the challenges we're bringing to the planet, I think that's going to massively reduce travel. Because for doing this session we're doing now, I could have got the train down to where you are to meet you to do this face to face, but why? This is much easier doing it this way.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And even in terms of, delivering train and things, I found it quite a lot easier. I tell you what, I miss though, Russell, I miss those hugs and selfies and handshakes. I really do miss that, getting together and the networking side of it. So how do you guys, obviously you are a network, how do you get across that? How do you, get that engagement level up?
Well, but it's no different for us, because if our networks around the world, that physical meeting was never an option, because the people were thousands of miles away. So we've built a communication model like this that achieves that. So, we've got, you'll have done it yourself. We've all closed deals over the last 6 months, and we built partnerships without physically having to meet the people. And I think that'll just become more of the norm. Yeah.
I looked at some of the keynote speakers you've got, Russell. I'm being very impressed, and some of them are my friends from the PSA, the Professional Speaking Association. There's so much content. What's been the feedback so far?
It seems to have been very positive. It's different, because this is what we're dealing with now is that the new norm is today. So today, this time a year ago when we put on this event, we would have had a hall, and we would have had speakers, and we'd have had a lot of handshakes and a lot of hugs, but that would have been it, and then we'd have left. There would have been a write-up on the event, and it would have been finished. I'm in the content creation business now. So at the end of this event, I end up with 70 pieces of content, including people who are like an actor who's played Doctor Who, or a business leader, or someone from New Zealand. I have all of these pieces of content. So I then have the ability to share that content from now to Christmas in order to promote what we're doing and to promote Scottish businesses. So though it's an event, it's actually a content creation period as well.
I can totally relate to that. So we'll do this today, Russell. We've got 4 speakers, and there's kind of batch processing for me, because what we'll do is we'll strip the audio out of this. That will then become a podcast episode. You could say something which might be a real piece of gold that may be 1 minute long. I'll chop that and make a small little social bit of content, a little video. I might put that on LinkedIn, on Twitter, point to the website. So you're right. It's given us so much content that we didn't have before.
Well, and also, you and I can both attract speakers that we would never have been able to get into the room with us, because they just diaries would never have allowed. We've got someone from the CTO office at Google speaking tomorrow. And he's a brilliant speaker as well. And he's going to speak about what he's hearing in the boardrooms of some of the biggest companies in the world. He's not going to talk about Google technology. He'll mention it, but the key thing is about thinking. But what we're seeing more and more is we're seeing people with passion who are attempting to make the world a better place. And that's how we're using this, because the relationship with money has changed in the last 6 months. We now know that there is a need that we must all focus our attention on those who are struggling in our society, those who aren't seeing food get into their door. No, we must focus on those areas. We must focus on the people who are disenfranchised due to technology. But we must also focus on the fact we've all suddenly realized we're all one planet. We're all suffering. My friend's wearing a mask, you're wearing a mask, and the guy in Auckland's wearing a mask. It's the same. And we have a really critical moment for the world, because if we were to fall back and build big walls around about our countries, that's a really scary moment for the world. So it's whether or not we can solve this and all come together now to address the bigger challenge, which is global warming.
I can hear the passion there straight away, Russell, and some of the things you've talked about there are some of the things I'm passionate about, and some of our listeners as well, because we're all like-minded people who watch and consume this content. In terms of the network, then what are your values, Russell? Do you have mission statements and values, what you're trying to achieve?
We have clarity of vision.
Okay.
Because when you start something off, that same vision may adjust a little, but it's still the same. So what we're trying to do is through bringing economic benefit to have that trickling down to have an effect. What's happened, though, is it's moved onto a much larger global scale due to the seniority of the people who are putting their names forward as ambassadors for us around the world. So the mission is about trying to help Scottish companies, that's our bias, hands up, Scottish companies to secure commercial opportunities outside Scotland. That's it, as simple as that. But how we go about doing it in the companies we work with. So we tend to attract entrepreneurial, positive, forward-thinking individuals who share a cultural heritage with us. So on Wednesday, I'm doing a session into Salt Lake City, or from Salt Lake City in Utah. And this isn't with someone who is Scottish. This is someone who has a great passion for Scotland. And he wants to build links. It's just a personal interest, is to build links based on historical ties between Salt Lake City and Scotland. And you go, well, what ties? Well, the university in Salt Lake City, their anthem, the song they sing at their football matches, is called The Scotsman. They sing it to a pipe band. There's a pretty big connection there. However, none of us would have been focusing our business attention on Utah, because we would have been focusing attention on the competition in New York or Atlanta, whereas there's so many different opportunities are coming to life around the world because of this enablement that this gives us, and the urgency that we need to find a new way to live and work together because of it.
You mentioned at the top of the conversation that there was 11 ambassadors, I think you said.
Yep.
Is that 11 ambassadors in different countries? And if so, do you need more?
Yes. So we're currently interviewing and appointing at the moment. So Los Angeles, Atlanta, New York, Washington, London, Amsterdam, Singapore, Brisbane, and Auckland. So sooner or later, I'll start forgetting the list because it'll get too long. But we're interviewing at the moment. And these are simply individuals who are willing to say, I would like to promote Scotland. And what you got to remember is Scotland's like the Northeast. Scotland's a nation, not a region like the Northeast, but we're not London. So we are separate, but we are represented by UK ministries around the world, and we can take advantage of that. But we also have a slight peculiarity or a slight angle, because it's either the region of the Northeast or it's Scotland. I remember doing, I did a project for a consultancy down south 10 years ago, and they were rolling out business training for companies. And they were based out of London. And the business training for companies in Newcastle was in Leeds. And we went, well, that's miles away. Why don't you do it in Newcastle? And it was because the resources weren't stretching that far. And there's one thing, it's an amazing thing that's happened is, I did a talk into Poland last week, and Polish companies were talking about the fact that they can't come on trade missions anymore. And I said, where did your trade mission to the UK go? And they went, what do you mean? I said, where did you go? They went, we went to London. Great. So now you can't go to London. So the good news is you can go to everywhere else. Because the opportunities are everywhere across the country. Not everything's centric on London.
Well, I think you've got a talk that I took part in being viewed on Thursday, I think, through your network. And I do bang the drum a bit about that, Russell, in terms of how far we are from London and how we may be more aligned to you guys across the border than down there. Yeah. Is that... Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just saying there are opportunities everywhere, and we're just not looking at them because we're blinded by noise. I was in London 2 weeks ago. It was pretty quiet to me. But we're going to have to adjust our thinking about our world, though. So this is a reset we're going through at the moment. We're seeing a technological adoption by a large chunk of our society. We're talking about home working, which is fantastic, provided you can do your work at home and provided you have a suitable living accommodation where you can do that. Otherwise, we're going to go to the Starbucks model, which is the third place. So it's work or it's home or it's the third place. And that third place is going to have to look significantly different from a cafe. So our world is going to change through these issues. We've seen I don't know what it's been like where you are, but what we've seen in Scotland is a growth in community. So a much stronger collaborative community is coming about because we've had to look out and care for each other. You're having to drop off the messages for someone next door. You're having to do this. And have you seen that there?
Yeah, for sure. It has been. I mean, obviously, I wasn't around in World War II, but you hear these, make, do, amend, and people leaving back doors open and helping people out and dropping food off. And I've dropped food off and bread and milk at friends' places. So yeah, I've certainly saw that. But unfortunately, we're on a bit of a local lockdown now, and in terms of community, it's illegal for us to see anybody outside of our house. going forward now, which is really going to play with our mental strength, Russell. There has been a bit of an uproar. Not getting too much on this soapbox, but everyone's confused. There's not much clarity, and we're now saying, we're now being told we can't see one another. So we have been kind of brought together, but then pulled apart. And I'm concerned about mental health, to be honest.
Yeah. I think you're quite right to be concerned about it. But these are issues that we're all going to have to deal with together. And my hope is that because we're all facing something that we all understand together, so we all understand there is something out there that's probably not good for our health, that we're trying to do something about it. But I think you're challenging. Can you imagine someone saying, right, you've got this rule of 6 and it's Christmas Day. What are we going to do? Are we all going to stick by the rule of 6 on Christmas Day? Are we? We don't know.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I tell you what it is, I've saw a big difference in something like, LinkedIn, social media posts. They've become a lot more authentic and a lot more feeling and values driven. A lot of people working from home and homeschooling children, which personally, I love that. I love it when the lines of home and business blur, because we're just people at the end of the day.
I think provided it helps. So one of the reasons why I don't use Facebook is I saw a great deal of negativity.
Yeah.
So the people that I interact with on LinkedIn tend to be much more around trying to come up with solutions. So even if someone has lost a job, it's coming up with a solution to try and see if we can help. And I think it's so we are, or I am a doer. I want to get on and do something. So we're kind of dealing with that as a society, I suppose, as we change. But it's going to be this. I keep on urging, this is the new norm. Why would I be coming to it in a year's time? Why would you or I give up a day to meet in person when we can do this in half an hour, get the points over and next?
Yeah, I think from a prospecting point of view, it makes perfect sense. If you're looking to potentially work with a client and maybe they are based in Leeds, so there's maybe 3 or 4 hours driving for me there and back, in total. And then, a couple hours for having a meeting. It's a day wrote off, whereas I can probably do it in an hour on Zoom. And now, if you didn't get face to face with that person back then, they'd be like, well, he's not even serious. He can't even be bothered to get his backside down here and meet me. But now it's accepted. So I certainly think from an economic, productive, environmental point of view, we have took that positive out of this. Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, this is face to face because I can see your face. So what is actually the intrinsic difference? So that the physicality piece is there, but the advantages to this from my perspective is what we're going to have to learn. And we're very fortunate that the younger generation coming up have been using the digital technologies quite naturally to communicate. And we've been complaining about them spending more time on their phone. And now we're doing that because it's the way we're going to do. So we'll end up with some different balance. But you mentioned the Second World War there. And if you remember that, if you read the stories of that time, your dad might have gone off and not come back for 5 years. And that was seen as something that happened in a society. So society is a continually changing and evolving thing. But I think by looking at and business is my world. So if I can find opportunities to partner with people in different parts of the world, then it's fantastic. And I love your part of the world. Now, one of my first jobs was working at the Phoenix store on Northumberland Street.
Oh, was it really? Okay.
Yeah, I was doing installation of point of sale equipment, like tills. And at that stage, retail was just amazing. So I was given, as the young laddie, I was told, right, we're going to do the test trial install, Russell. So you have to take this to the wedding department in Phoenix and install it. So I went, okay, off I went. I got my backside kicked and thrown out. They just went, you're not coming. There was people trying on wedding dresses. They didn't want some grubby Scottish guy in there trying to install a till. It was just a joke. They just sent me there for no reason whatsoever. And sometimes I think we have to remember that life's about fun as well.
It certainly is. It certainly is. And listen, before we wrap it up, I'm really interested in terms of the experience you've had with the ambassadors around the globe. Where's feeling really buoyant, Russell, and where do you think have a great appetite for expansion and learning and knowledge and they really want to kick on?
Do you mean a particular part of the world?
Yeah, I was thinking, if you can look at like Far East Asia or something, or in the States, where do you feel it,
Well, I think it's looking, because it's a period of change, there's actually opportunity everywhere because supply chains are getting disrupted. Large multinational companies are having the nightmare of trying to adjust. I think we're seeing a technological component in any solution has been really important, but it's more about delivering value. So I'm seeing companies growing and developing across the globe. I wouldn't say there's a particular part of the world that's doing particularly well. I think there's one thing that we forget, though, in this country. So in comparison with everyone else, we don't have to learn English at university to go and do business. We have a passport which is accepted in most countries. We have a country that's one of the top 10 countries in the world in terms of GDP, and we have a highly educated workforce. So the rest of the world is kind of looking at us going, what's all right for them? And we've got to remember and take advantage of the unfair advantage we've got in this world to do things. And I think that's it, to try and thrust forward with that. I was talking to the lad that runs Startup Northeast or Startup Newcastle. And
Paul Lancaster, friend of the show.
And Paul Lancaster was telling me that he'd contacted a senior individual at a big tech firm who'd gone to university in Newcastle. And suddenly there's an opportunity there. So the opportunities are there, but they won't be where they were yesterday. So if your opportunities were going to networking events, that's not going to happen. So find a new opportunity and get used to the fact it's easier to network online than it was in person. And you're going to go, well, that's not true, Russell. It's harder. No, you're just going to have to learn how to do it, because that's what I had to do 3 years ago. All the information's there. You can contact anyone direct. They're all listed on LinkedIn.
That's a great place to leave it, Russell. Thank you so much. I can see our next guest ready to go there. Is there anything you want to leave us with? Where can we find you? Where do you want to push people?
ScottishInternationalWeek.com is the website, and all events are free and all events are open to everyone. And we would love to be doing more business in the Northeast because it's so close to us, so many similarities, and we just love to be doing that.
So ScottishInternationalWeek.com, if someone can put on the comments, that's great. We'll have a look, and you'll see a section from me on Thursday. I think I might be on there as well. So Russell, thank you so much for your time. It's been fantastic. Do you need a half Irish, half English ambassador?
Do I need a
half English, half Irish ambassador?
Could do with an ambassador in the Northeast. As long as they're an affinity Scot. So England are playing Scotland. Which team are you hoping wins?
Okay, and on that note, Russell, it's been lovely to have you with us, and I can see you, my friend. There you go. That was our Russell Dalgleish. So thanks so much. Quickly look at the comments. Laura Foster, how are you? Excellent. Thank you very much. Congratulations on the 200. There's my mother. Hi, Mom. Katie, thanks so much for pushing it out. This is Tony's book. Who else you got? Jenny, thanks so much for joining us again, and appreciate you recommending the podcast to your university students. Thank you. Hillary, you are right. Networks are worth their weight in gold. And my invest friends, congratulations. Thank you so much. And we'll be going live on Thursday night, 6 o'clock with Invest South Tyneside, and we'll be interviewing Andy Walton from here. And John, great of you to join us, my friend. You keep strong, brother. Okay, then, let's bring in our next guest. I've got an introduction here. Here we go. Our next guest is the founder of ExcludedUk, a grassroots non-profit organization committed to providing personal, business, and career support to those facing hardship as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. There's lots of stuff here, but I'm just going to bring her in because I know she's on a tight deadline. So, Anneka Hicks, lovely of you to join me. Hi there.
Hi, Ian. Nice to meet you. Thanks.
You're welcome, and thanks for coming. Anneka, school run 2:55, I've heard.
It is. I've got to cut it fine, I'm afraid.
Who's this for?
My little boy, he's a 7-year-old. He's just started a new school. He's loving every minute. So he was quite pleased when I said I might be a little bit late this morning.
What's your little boy called?
William.
William, lovely. Nice, strong name. Anneka, so pleased you can join us because we are going to continue where Tony Robinson left us off last week. Anneka, my friend, we were on fire. The comments have been going wild. I now have a copy of The Happypreneur, and he just said, look, you need Anneka on, man. You need to bring Anneka in. So I'm dead excited, right? I am literally going to shut up and leave this over to you because you have been so busy. Excluded UK has been so busy. You've created a storm. I've been loving watching the comments, watching the Twitter feeds. Everybody is so excited. Everybody is so supportive and thankful for what you guys are doing. So could I literally just hand over to you, and would you, for the people who aren't aware of Excluded UK, give us a bit of a heads up?
Sure. So as we all know, after the announcements that the Chancellor made on the 23rd of March, where there was this unprecedented range of support schemes for as many people as he could possibly help. He ensured that no one would be left behind, and that filled everybody with a job or a business with confidence and hope, which was all very quickly sort of dashed to the rocks, really. If you changed jobs at the wrong time, or you started your business within the last few years, or you've taken a pension payment to help you or reinvest back into your business, maybe you had 2 jobs, one of which was self-employed, one of which was PAYE, maybe you were on 0 hours contracts, maybe you took some paternity leave, so you had a baby at the wrong time. All of these things happen to be excluded from all of those fantastic support schemes that the Chancellor offered. So very quickly, personally, at that stage, I lost about 95% of my income overnight. I ran a small marketing agency in the IT and telecom sector. That was very heavily affected early on, and my contracts were frozen. At that stage, I employed a couple of people. I worked with a number of self-employed contractors who helped us in the agency. And I also had 2 members of staff starting with me on the 2nd of April. I was really thankful that the Chancellor allowed me to furlough my staff. I topped them up to 100% and thought, we've got a couple of months, we put it all into hibernation, we'll be fine. Quickly realised that left me with nothing. Personally, I wasn't entitled to the grants, being a business that worked from home predominantly. So nothing there. Being a director of a limited company, I was unable to claim any self-employment income support scheme, and I was able to furlough myself, but only if I refrained from doing any work on the business myself. So that little 5% of business that I still had to manage, gone, couldn't have done it. So then the employees that I was due to take on, I had to obviously retract their contracts. I wasn't able to put them on furlough. Spent the next 3 or 4 weeks with this horrendous guilt and sense of failure. Had all the confidence knocked out of me, I think. Just thought, if I was more financially secure, and we were a very successful business. I had enough in the bank. I knew that 6 months or so in the bank to take us through. I had money saved up for tax and VAT and all of the other overheads, and I kind of thought, we can do a couple of months. But it quickly became clear that the gaps in the support schemes were so huge and were affecting so many people that I just felt like we needed to do something to help them. So we formed Excluded UK in middle of March with a few people I've never met. We met on a Facebook group. We quickly grew our community to, I think it's about 50,000 now across all of our social platforms and across our website membership as well. And our aim really was to bring together all of those different communities of people. We wanted to talk to the people here. Each of those groups kind of had their own campaign groups. They had their specific asks. They were going out there and lobbying every day, and that was fantastic. And we supported all of them. But it was really a case of, there's an opportunity here to bring together the people that were affected by all of these various random circumstances. You've got people from all walks of life, all age ranges, all industries, and surely that if we were to be able to bring those together, we'd be able to help them help each other potentially get through this challenging time. With the self-employed people maybe wanting to incorporate, maybe there was opportunities for small businesses to pool their resources and be able to get through this. The employees that had so tragically lost their jobs between that time, maybe we could encourage them to start their own businesses and again sort of pull together and start new things and create things with each other. And that's what's been really powerful. My faith in humanity has really been restored in the last few months. To be able to provide a platform for these people, a website, we've got a forum, we've got the social media platforms. We've been encouraging people to put on events for the rest of the community, so people are learning from each other and learning new skills and helping each other with, accountancy questions and debt problems and just business development and skills and retraining. And it's just been fantastic. That really is a really positive thing to have come out of such a horrendous situation.
So as you've spoke there, I've gone from happy to sad to angry to sad to happy, and you smiled all the way through it, because you obviously do feel like you've made a difference with ExcludedUk. So, and I didn't know what you were going to say, so that's why I was angry. But you were smiling all the way through, which is cool. So it sounds like you've really created a great support network there. You talk about collaborations, potential collaborations, and supporting each other and that kind of stuff. But you also touched upon lobbying, and I think you said there was various sort of campaign groups out there. When you first started this, might have been splinter groups or maybe regional groups or industry-specific groups. Can we look at the lobbying side? Because the support's all great, and I love that, and it's very, very important, but we need to, I'm trying to stay calm. We need to try to influence or make a change. So what can we do from a lobbying point of view?
Well, it's been a really interesting journey, to say the least. The last few months of putting all of this together. We set up very early on as a non-profit organisation with the intention of being there long term for a long time. We knew that, these changes in the government were probably, less likely to happen as time went on, although we tried everything. We do have a kind of political arm to the organisation now, I suppose. Sonali, one of the other founders, has been just fantastic in her commitment to communicating as well as we possibly can with as many influential MPs as we possibly can. The community has been fantastic in getting behind the initiatives. We managed to bring together a number of really supportive MPs into what's become the largest APPG, so all-party parliamentary group, actually in history. I think there's 270 or so MPs that have taken part in all of that now. So that's been really positive. The awareness that brought from bringing all of those different MPs together and running a series of lobby week meetings that we've been doing over the last month or so. So we started throughout June and July, through the summer period, by inviting some of these MPs to do live Q&As with our community, which were really powerful. I think we had 30 or so MPs take part, which is great. It allowed us to bring together all of those examples of case studies within those MPs' constituencies and really shine a light on the breadth of the problem here. And it was really well received. And it was a result of those live Q&As that the APPG was formed, and that built momentum. Martin Lewis got on the back of the campaign right from the early days. So although we never set out to be a campaign group at all, you know, as I say, there were some very, very, and still are, some fantastic campaign groups out there fighting for specific elements and specific asks. Forgotten Limited for limited company directors, New Starter Justice for new starters. You've got We Make Events, you've got the maternity petition. You know, they're all very specific in their areas. Annual PAYE, you know, again, that's a kind of, you know, that's a Forgotten Limited company director in an even smaller and unjust section of just that. So there's, you know, even the campaign groups have their subsections. It's just a horrendous injustice. And I think as time has gone on, what it's done to people, you know, in terms of their mental health, in terms of their lives and their futures, is unforgivable, really. And I think last Thursday, when the Chancellor came out with his announcements, I think there was kind of some trepidation and, you know, well, is this going to be for us, or is this going to just, you know, hit the same issues as it had before? And I don't want to say that we got over hopeful, because we certainly didn't expect anything and we were right not to. But the more you think about it, the more you just think, the government, the Treasury, they know who we are. A report was written in June, July time by the Treasury Select Committee that addressed all of those gaps in support. And Mel Stride himself, you know, recommended that the Chancellor righted those wrongs. He's had every opportunity. He's now got more than a third of Parliament behind righting those wrongs. And yet he still does nothing. And I find that pretty disgusting, actually. But we're not going to give up. Certainly not going to give up. We've got a day of action planned tomorrow.
Okay.
Difficult in these circumstances. Very limited, very COVID secure, but we are taking, or we're meeting up with 100 of our community tomorrow, and we're doing a march along with Bec2 and Equity and We Make Events to raise awareness for the wider community. Bec2 and We Make Events and Equity are all the theatre and the creative industry sector who have been so horrendously affected through this. And then we're going to meet press and MPs on Parliament Square tomorrow ahead of Prime Minister's questions too. So still very heavily involved in the lobbying side.
How does that march look, Anneka? Because what we don't want is obviously any negative press around people coming together and not distancing and that sort of thing, and taking us away from what the campaign's all about. So what have you done to eradicate that?
Well, it's been really difficult to make the decision to do it in the first place, if I'm completely honest with you. You know, the last few weeks have very much been should we, shouldn't we?
Yes.
The community, again, is very split. You know, we've got certain members really actively, very passionately saying that we should all get together. And we've got other members who are completely against it. And, you know, I appreciate both sides.
Yeah.
What tomorrow is about is not about, you know, a protest. It's not about the big march. It's about the opportunity to communicate and speak to MPs and press and explain to them, you know, the reality of the situation. The events side are doing a panto parade. So each of the groups, and this is very, very strict on COVID. You know, everybody that is coming tomorrow is registered in advance. Registration is now closed. The location of which is being kept secret, so nobody can just turn up. We've done all the track and trace stuff, and we've, you know, made sure that everybody is in groups of 5, not 6. socially distanced. It's all very, very strictly put together. The police are aware, everything. So we've done as much as we can to be as responsible as we can in the situation that we're faced with. But we do see it as a really good opportunity for press and MPs to come and speak to the members.
In terms of the MPs, I think you mentioned the APPG. My local MP, Emma Lewelbuck, she's part of it. She's very supportive of it. You mentioned a third, Anneka. So why only a third?
A third of MPs have got behind the need for these schemes to be righted. So I'm going to say that is the biggest APPG ever recorded in history. Yeah. We would have loved to have got more, of course, but I think we were very surprised we've even got more than 50. So to have got a third of Parliament, we're very happy.
Well, I'm not taking that away from you because it is. But when I say only a third, why not everybody? Why? What makes someone not support this? I don't get it, because it's just obvious, isn't it? I mean, yes, it's obvious to the Chancellor, but I get the Chancellor has pressures and lots to think about, and there's all kind of, but just lobbying doesn't mean that you are going to set something in stone. It just means, can we have a look at this, please?
Yeah.
Why can't we have a look at it?
I know we've asked on numerous occasions for the Chancellor to meet with us directly. Okay. We'd love to be involved, in how we can help our community, help the economy get back on track. That's all we want to do. Entrepreneurship is the backbone of the economy. And it's just bizarre that as many as 3 million people, probably more, have just been cast aside like this. It's very difficult, actually, from a public perception point of view, to get this across unless you've been affected directly. And I think that's our issue. With the figures that we've put together, we've established that 1 in 10 working taxpayers have been affected by this in some way. Not all of them even want to come forward to support, the fact that they've missed out. And I'm kind of baffled by that as well. I've sat and talked to friends whose businesses have been affected by this, and I've said, you're excluded, come and join. And they said, well, we didn't get anything. What can we do about it? So yeah, it's been really difficult, and also the schemes that have been put into place have been so well documented and supported by the press as well, that this kind of rhetoric that they continue spouting out, that the schemes are unprecedented and that 95% of people can access them, and that, even if they can't access them, there's still universal credit, and there's universal credit has been made better to accommodate more people. Our survey says that 64% of the people that we interviewed can't access UC either. If you've got savings in the bank, because they're like me, I had 30 grand put aside in March that I'd spent 15 years putting together to put down a deposit on a house. Now that 30 grand's gone. It took me 15 years of my career to save that, and that was for my future. And because I've always been self-employed, I don't have a pension, so that's my future gone. Yeah. The result of what this government have done by casting this amount of people aside is irreparable in some cases. Some of the case studies, it's just heartbreaking, really heartbreaking, through no fault of their own.
I think the clarity as well, Anneka, you mentioned universal credit, but then I've heard some people say, well, if they take the furlough and that money comes in, that's going to affect my universal credit because I'm getting more money, so then my universal credit will be lower. So actually, I'm not any better off.
No.
And there's numerous cases, like you say, that it's not a one size fits all.
No.
sorry, you jump in case studies if you do have a couple of because I think it would help people who don't understand or aren't aware of what you're doing to actually have that little bit of clarity. So go on, if you could share some stories.
Yeah, I mean, some of the case studies they're just heartbreaking. I mean, we've got Cheryl. I love Cheryl. She's an army veteran. She served our country for 22 years. She had an army pension. Her army pension was 53% of her total income on a monthly basis. She started a business to contribute to boost her pension.
Yeah.
She's excluded. She's not been able to do, to receive any support. There's people who have taken pension payments within the last 3 or 4 years and put that back into their business to invest and to grow it, or to take on an employee, and they've now got nothing. It's just horrendous, the breadth of people that this is affecting. Hairdressers, good, hard-working, independent driving instructors, artists, theatre technicians, musicians, consultants, accountants, hypnotherapists, you name it. These are hardworking, self-sufficient, driven, intelligent, entrepreneurial, passionate people who've just had the rug pulled out from under them through no fault of their own. Everyone's paid into this system, and these people have been discriminated against.
And we're going to end up paying into it for a long time coming, Anneka, and they've took nothing out of it.
And on top of that, though, Ian, I mentioned mental health earlier. Some of the stories that I have and some of the other guys receive on a daily basis, and this is getting worse. I'm not trained to deal with that kind of heartache. I think I've probably talked 7 or 8 people back from the ledge within the last 10 days alone. Because any hour of the day, we're receiving reports of these people who just have given up. They don't know where to turn. They're walking into next year with debt they never considered needing. A business that has been completely taken to its knees. A family who, houses have been lost. Cars have been sold. People are feeding their families from food banks. These kind of people that work this hard aren't used to asking for help. And all of a sudden, they find themselves in a situation where there is no one to help them, which is why we're so dedicated to providing as much support as we can, fundraising, just working with as many organisations as possible who will be able to help us help our community get through this, so that we can rebuild their confidence and rebuild their businesses and make the most of the skills and experience that they've got to get them through and help them to recover somehow. And we've just launched our fully funded one-to-one counselling sessions based on the fact that
well done.
Any of these people go to their GP, they're going to have to wait 16 weeks to get help.
Yep, too late.
It doesn't even bear thinking about. It really does.
Yeah, and they can't afford to go private, and it's.
No.
I'm really mindful you've got to pick William up. So listen, thanks so much for your time. I could listen all day, and I haven't said much because I've just wanted you to talk because you're the voice for this, and I'm really thankful for what you do and you and your team. So listen, where can we find you? Where can we find out more? What can we do?
Please go to the website www.ExcludedUk.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram. You'll find us if you look. And if you see a story that where someone is affected by this, and I can guarantee to every single person watching now, someone will know someone who has been affected by this. 1 in 10, 3 million people in the UK are suffering right now as a result of being denied access to these support schemes. And even if it's just moral support, even if it was just a share on Facebook to get this awareness up, please support us. And just please be mindful.
Brilliant. Well, listen, thanks so much for your help, Anneka. I'll be watching with interest, and I'm going to make a podcast episode out of this as well. And we're going to push this out from an audio point of view as well, and we'll do whatever we can to keep banging the drum. Okay, so you go and get William. Thanks so much for your time, Anneka, and let's keep in touch. Yeah.
Thanks, Ian.
Thank you.
Bye.
Wow, I try to stay cool there. Thanks so much, Anneka. Really, really interesting topic. I don't even know what to say. A lot of us have been affected. A lot of our friends and family have been affected by this. Something needs to change. This can't keep going on. Something does need to change, and I need to calm down. I need to calm down for our next guest. So let me do that right now. So on our next, and let me see who's joined us first. Tristan, thanks so much, my friend, for joining us. That looks like you're across Periscope. Great stuff. Tina, thank you for joining us. I hope you're still available to do your PT work and keep us all not just mentally fit, but physically fit as well, Tina. So thanks so much. Right then, Ed Goodman, our next guest, social media digital marketing trainer, consultant, strategist, author, podcast host, and founder of Freelance Heroes. Welcome to the Industry Angel, Ed.
Thank you very much for having me. Congratulations on your 200th episode. An awesome achievement.
Thank you so much, my friend. You'll know all about what creating content's all about, and it's not easy, is it?
No, which is why I look to people like you for inspiration.
Oh, I'll take that. Thank you so much. In terms of inspiration, our Anneka there, I know you joined us 10 minutes or so before the end. How you find, this could be linked in terms of what Freelance Heroes is doing, Ed. What's your opinion? Do you have anything to say on this?
There's a huge crossover there, and I'm in utter awe for what Anneka and the team are doing, because for those who feel there isn't a way forward, then there is, because every single voice that gets added to it is another voice that makes that voice get louder, and you just can't ignore someone screaming and shouting at you. So make that voice be heard. Join the excluded group. Shout to your MP, and something will inevitably have to be done. But there is a crossover, because if there's the point that Anneka was saying at the end there around mental health, and which is part of the reason that Freelance Heroes started, which is around just being able to provide that support from other people when you're wearing their shoes, irrelevant what industry they're in. You might be a web designer and the person you're talking to is an accountant, incredibly different. But when you remove the layer of the service we provide, actually, we all have the same challenges underneath. We still have challenges around finding customers, motivation, productivity, admin, and more important, empathy. Because we'll have friends and family who back us up, but they don't necessarily. There are many freelancers who will say that my parents don't really know what I do. Or I know it now, and I go, how's lockdown affected you? Well, it's affected me great, but not really so much because you work from home. No, but I'm still a business owner. I mean, I might work from home before lockdown and during lockdown, but I'm still a business owner. It's just the challenges are entirely, are different. So, there is a crossover, and the mental health support out there, as I say, is part of the reason that Freelance Heroes started.
Yeah, it was great what Anneka said at the end there in terms of being able to reach out and get some free, fully funded counselling, which is so important right now. And anybody watching, I hope they do have someone they can talk to about this. It's interesting, Ed, because, a lot of us are in business, but a lot of us aren't as well. A lot of us are employees. And I think sometimes you don't really understand, what entrepreneurs, small business owners, micro business, solopreneurs, the kind of pain they're going through. And sometimes they'll look at employees and go, well, it's all right for you. You get paid every month. You know who's paying your wages. But conversely, they don't know who's paying their wages, because that business could be faltering as well. And, there's just uncertainty from all sides, really.
Yeah, it's not a them and us. There's entirely different challenges, but ultimately we're all doing what we're doing for our own reason. I mean, I think if everyone knew that there was work that could keep someone under the same pay, at least, if not more, then everyone would freelance, wouldn't they? Because there's a freedom around freelancing in a way that employment doesn't have, but there's equally a sense of belonging that being part of a company gives you that freelancing doesn't have, which again is why Freelance Heroes is here. But no, there absolutely isn't a them and us. Companies need freelancers, freelancers need companies, and we're all on the same side of looking after ourselves to live the lives that make us happy.
That's a great way to put it. Thanks for that, Ed. So just in terms of Freelance Heroes, then tell us about it. Where did it come from? What was the idea? Why did it start? Are you a freelancer? Were you a freelancer? Come on, fill in the gaps.
Okay, so the Freelance Heroes actually started because I was eavesdropping on a conversation at a networking event. And if you can picture a scenario where there were two photographers, one of which was starting out, one of which is more established. And the one that was starting out was asking the established one, any tips and advice? I'm in the early stages of heading down my path. What could you give me to help? And the experienced one was very reluctant to share anything and said, I don't really want to, tell you too much. I don't want to give my secrets and my customer base away, which I thought was a ludicrous idea in the first place. And then thought, well, I wonder if that person could ask a photographer who, not that I agree with it and I don't want to support or fan flames of that idea anyway, but if someone could ask a freelancer who was based the other side of the country, that challenge wouldn't be there, and therefore they would get the answer to their question. So I went home and a Facebook group called Freelance Heroes was born. And then about a week later, I think I spelled heroes correctly, but that's a different and that's ultimately what the group has been about. It's grown since it was in May 2016 that it started. We're in October 2020 and have 10,500 freelancers from across the UK as part of the community. And the premise of the community is to seek out peer support, to be able to share. I've got a WordPress issue, or I've got a client who won't pay, which seems to be the question that appears too often, sadly, or at least hasn't paid. But that's again a different scenario. Or my motivation is down, or it could be a social media question, whatever. Someone in that group will give you their support. There's no sales pitches; it's not allowed. There's no non-freelancers. They're not allowed. They're only UK freelancers, not for any xenophobic reasons, but because it's easier to empathize with someone when you understand the culture and taxation responsibilities, etc., with which they work. And that's the premise of the group, and it continues to grow. We were recognized with an award from the Association of Independent Professionals and Self-Employed, which we were honored to receive in June last year. And there was one story that always springs to mind, which I think underpins what Freelance Heroes is about. And there was a woman who, I remember it was an evening, I don't remember what day of the week it was, but it was in the evening, and she had posted that she'd struggled, that her business was near collapse. She had 66p in her account, and she didn't know what to do from a business perspective. Now, I think, and we're quick, certainly with the social media world, to judge and to criticize, which doesn't help anybody. Might make the person posting the critique kind of feel better, but it doesn't really help anybody. But actually what happened was no one told her that she was foolish or made bad decisions. What she ended up was with 2 A4 sides of paper full of solution ideas that enabled her to then put into practice. And the following day, she was enthused with these ideas, put them into practice. And I'm delighted to say that 18 months or so later, she's still going. And that's the premise of the group. It's for people to not feel judged, for not, to be able to share share their joy, share their frustration, and to get other freelancers who understand what it's like to be able to help them. And it's I think we generally believe we're in the age of a freelancer now. Again, it's not them and us, but I'm here to I am a freelancer myself. But it's very much a we are in an age where more people are going freelancing. When the furlough scheme comes to an end and job cuts increase, I think, dramatically, which is the general expectation, many more will start to be forced to work for themselves. And I think it's a good time to go freelancing as well. I think, anyone that can, and we saw this in the financial crash of 2008, anyone who starts a business during dark times will have a more robust, efficient business when things are looking a little rosier. I'm not for a moment glossing over the year that we've all had, or having, more to the point, but I do think that this is a time for freelancers to really go out there. And I think I'm not sure if I've answered your question or if I've answered several other questions at the same time, but for me, a freelance hero is someone who is looking to be successful. Their definition of success is entirely up to them, and no one should criticize or comment on what success may be. They may be, I want to tick over earning my few pounds and happy living the life that I've got, or they want to grow an agency, or most cases somewhere in between. And that's okay. Whatever goal for a freelancer they want to achieve, that's okay. But a freelance hero is someone who goes and strives to achieve their goal, but they take other people with them by putting an arm around their shoulder, or outsourcing work if that need is available to them, or helping them by answering their questions along the routes. And if we all do that, then how phenomenal would that be for us all? And we've got 2 million freelancers in the UK.
Yeah. So in terms of freelance heroes, then, like the business, is it a forum of support, or is it a place to get to bring a freelancer in to help you with work, and then is that how you get paid? Is that how it washes its face? Or
so Freelance Heroes is a support group. That's the primary aspect to it. We have it recently launched the Freelance Heroes website, of which there are jobs on the Freelance Heroes website too for freelancers, where companies can post their jobs and freelancers can access them too. But the premise of there's loads of places where freelancers can look for jobs. And the purpose of it is to bring those freelancers. The purpose of Freelance Heroes is to be able to bring those freelancers together to help each other find the solution to whatever challenge they've got, whatever it may be. I need work. I've got too much work. I haven't been paid, or I've got people not sharing blogs and stuff, but sharing their answers to the questions where people come for help. When we bring people together for a common goal and they are all there for the same reasons, then the power that supports is enormous. Now, whether that is and there's so much of this, Tony with Micro Biz Matters, who, is also an inspiration of mine as well, as is Paul Lancaster too, and Anneka and the Excluded team. And there are many communities out there who are here for the same reasons and doing with their own specific angle to this. And ours is very much to say, actually, now is a great time to be a freelancer. No one should tell you that you're right or you're wrong for the goal you're going for, but we can't do this on our own. No freelancer is an island. The joy of being a freelancer is you work for yourself, but you can't work by yourself the whole time, because it just doesn't work. You don't have the answers to all the questions, and you don't even know what the questions are yet much of the time. So this is a community to help break isolation, to help allow you to ensure that you can work by yourself, for yourself, but you don't have to work by yourself, and you've got the best tools available to you to get to where you want to be. And so often the challenges are around the mental health side of it, the anxieties, the fears that you can talk through with colleagues or your boss or HR, but you don't have an HR department because you are the HR department as well as the chief technical officer, CFO, CEO, finance director, and all those hats you're wearing too.
Is it a moderated forum then, Ed? Is that how it works?
Yes, that'll be me. So it's So it's a Facebook group primarily, and it's born, it's spread its wings from there. We're across social media. If you search for the hashtag Freelance Heroes, you'll pretty much find us everywhere, although you won't find any of us doing a TikTok dance. And I keep saying us, it's myself and Annie. Annie Brown is a VA. Hello, My PA is her organization, who I brought in about 3 months after starting Freelance Heroes, because I realized, much like freelancing, I can't do it on my own. And she's very different to me in terms of how we work. But we've complemented each other really well in growing the community. And through Freelance Heroes Day, which is a national day that we have in Wolverhampton in May every year, obviously cancelled this year, which is where freelancers come together for a day of talks and networking and to celebrate freelancing too. So that's an annual event, which is cancelled in May and is an online event coming up on the 6th of November, which includes a Zoom party too, just saying. Finer details are being established. But so we have a Twitter chat every Wednesday of Freelance Heroes every Wednesday evening. We have the website that's come from there. These are, like any business, responding to the demands that the customers want, and our customers are us. They're freelancers. And it's a moderated group, which I'm on there frequently because the group grows at around 300 a month.
Wow.
And it's free to join. There's no sales pitches in there as a Facebook community. It's a free to join peer group for people to support each other, and that's what we do.
So just in terms of taking the temperature then, Ed, you probably got a good handle on what's happening right now. How many members did you say there's in there now?
10,478, I think it is, give or take.
Wow, give or take. So, you probably got a good feel now for the economy, people's mental health, people's worries, wars. What's going on, Ed? What is the general feel?
So there's a number of elements to this, one of which is, of course, a lot of clients are pulling the plug because they don't know the direction of their business, so they don't want to commit to working on certain projects. And so, we're naturally having to find new clients. There's many who have successfully sought support from the government. There are many who have been excluded because they haven't been freelancing long enough, because they're directors of limited companies and the only employees as well. And, as Anneka was saying, there's many freelancers out there, as Anneka was saying, many freelancers out there who take minimum pay because they reinvest into the business and ensure all their suppliers get paid on time. I think part of the reason that many people criticize the excluded is for that fear. Well, you get your money through dividends to avoid tax rules. Really isn't the case. It's to reinvest into the business, to pay suppliers on time, and to take dividends, which comes from the profits of a business. There's those who are excluded too, and there's many who have been successful as well, who have continued to successfully navigate the year that we've had. And everyone deserves a voice, good or bad, to be able to celebrate or air their concerns. But there's no glossing over this. It's a hard time for everyone, but this is particularly a hard time for people who are navigating waters that we have never navigated before, and you're doing it on your own. And well, of course, the point of Freelance Heroes is you're not on your own, but it's a challenge. But that challenge comes from, there's many who don't want to take money from the government because they feel that they can navigate it through their income, and again, that's entirely up to them too. But it's a tough time. But we're professionals, employed, self-employed. We're resilient people. So we'll find the ways that we need to find to either diverse our skills, to seek new audiences, and be able to get to where we want to be. Community is so powerful to help people get through it. If you open yourself up and you let people support you, I challenge anyone who works for themselves to ask for help. Don't just Google it and think you can do it yourself. You might get lucky and get the response, but if you just open yourself and ask the people who understand your trials and tribulations and highs and lows, then you've got a better opportunity to getting to where you want to get to, and faster too.
What's the
demographic?
demographic?
Because of the people you bring together through your podcasts, and that from the people that you speak to, like those that we've mentioned and those you've got on today. It's that community, having that network of true and trusted people is invaluable, genuinely invaluable.
It's totally invaluable, and I love bringing some of those on because we have such a diverse set of opinions. I love to bring people on from all walks of life to get a good feel for how we are as a nation, just as a world, and that's what I was just about to ask you there. What is a demographic of freelance heroes in our freelancing landscape now in the UK? What is it?
So there are 5 million self-employed people in the UK, but many of those are in construction or gig economy. So a freelancer is someone who works on multiple projects for multiple clients without employees. And there are 2 million of those across the UK, and fairly spread out. In every town or village, you will find freelancers who you didn't know exist that are there. And they're across all walks of life. These freelancers, if I look at the demographics specifically within Freelance Heroes, there is over 200 different types of businesses represented, from virtual assistants to designers, developers, teachers, consultants, accountants, mental health practitioners, life coaches, mentors. That's to get that pool of people to have at your disposal, not to use and abuse, give me free stuff, but to say, actually, this is my challenge, and you get hit in the face with the solutions to that challenge. It's extraordinary. And that diversity across the walks of life, across across all levels of affluency, across all experiences. Every freelancer has a story to tell. And I think the advantage of a freelancer is that, we're there with our personalities. The thing that differentiates us all is us. I'm a social, as you said at the offset so kindly, I'm a social media and digital marketing trainer and consultant. There's many of us, and many who will have the skills that I have, and will have different skills as I will to them too. And the reason why someone will go to them above me is, if they knew us both, would be because they prefer the personality of that person, and vice versa. And freelancers give us an opportunity to step out from behind a brand and to be our brand and to be our personality. So to do that, and then do that with 2 million other freelancers on, having my back is a pretty powerful thing, because there is so many books and sites to read, but the best support for all 2 million freelancers across the UK comes from the other 2 million freelancers in the UK. And that's what we need. As I say, no freelancer is an island.
In terms of the group, do you find people who are not yet freelancers and they want to transition across, or they're thinking about it and they're asking, what's it going to be like? What are the pitfalls? Will I be okay?
Could you imagine if someone goes, what are the pitfalls? I might just put that in the group after our chat. If someone was starting out and asking what are the pitfalls of freelancers,
please do a search in the group. Don't ask this question. Search the threads. There's plenty of it.
Yes, and actually I'm seeing more of it. So when you join Freelance Heroes, you're asked 3 questions, one of which is where in the UK you're based, as to help ensure that you are in the UK. One of which is, what area of freelancing do you work in? And that's partly to ensure you are a freelancer. And thirdly, how did you hear about us? And actually, I'm seeing an increase in number of people answer that second question. I am starting out or I'm thinking of going into, whichever area of freelancing they're thinking of going into. And that's, I think that's born out of the fact that, freelancers, people are concerned about their jobs and looking at other avenues, or they have work, as many freelancers do. They have either a full or part-time job and are now starting out a freelance business outside of their committed employed hours, and often the best way to start as well. And that's where we're seeing this huge increase of people coming through. And I think that if someone asked me that question, what are the biggest pitfalls? It's to make sure that you are good at what you do, that you enjoy it, and you've got customers who will pay for it. And that's pretty much everything else will work out for itself. Then you get to the intricacies of make sure you have contracts with your companies, make sure that you discuss payment terms before you invoice them. Make sure that you have that network around you that you can meet, not just in Freelance Heroes, but even within your geographical location that can support you. And yeah, the rest kind of will just come along as you learn it. Which apps you use and times you spend on certain areas can only come down to experience.
Ed, you've created a monster by the sounds of it. You said that you moderated it, and was it Annie as well, your colleague?
Yeah.
You must spend an awful lot of time in there, my friend.
There are times when I'll, end of the day, lying in bed and just, kind of having that chilling out moment, and I'll go through the freelance group and I'll let some people in as they join at all hours, and then some people, and I might just get a direct message from someone going, I don't know what else to do. I'm lost and broken. And I think there was one time only a few weeks ago where someone private messaged me because they were seriously struggling, and actually the words that they were using were quite worrying to read. So, there I am lying in bed mid-film with my wife, and and picking up the phone to them to make sure they're okay. And there's so it is a fairly committed stuff, but you don't start something like this without, being prepared to go the full, I didn't dream that we would get to 10,000 freelancers, let alone in 4 years. And if you ask me how many I'm going for, I don't know the answer to that question within the community. And of course, we're on a Facebook group as it stands, although we have the website too that we're growing as well. So, we've got our community in there as well that's conversing and dealing with the fact that they can have that community even though they don't like Facebook, which of course is another kettle of fish.
It is a kettle of fish. I'm going to take the lid off it. So obviously, people say you're building, your business on someone else's land, and you're obviously pushing the members into Facebook. You've got 10,000 in there, and what happens when Zuckerberg kicks Ed out? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I take umbrage at the fact that you think that I would be one of the groups that he would remove. Actually, there's but I would like just to hear Mark Zuckerberg use the words "get off my land," and I think there's there are the natural place to have started this is LinkedIn groups, but LinkedIn groups user function is pretty awful.
Yes, it is,
and therein lies the problem. I would have preferred this to have been on LinkedIn originally than Facebook, but again, therein lies its issue. So here we are on Facebook, and there are millions of other groups on Facebook, and actually, as many keep telling me, the only reason they're on Facebook is for the groups function, and kindly say specifically for Freelance Heroes. But we are a Facebook group. We are on someone else's land, as you mentioned, and we then have the website, and of course many people hate Facebook. That increased after the Cambridge Analytica issues as well. The trust in Facebook and social media in general has dropped, and people don't want to be on Facebook as a result, but they want to be part of Freelance Heroes. So the website has been created to overcome that challenge, and in time, I suspect, although not overnight by any stretch, in time that will be our main focus rather than the Facebook group itself. But, that could be years away.
See, I knew opening that little kettle of fish would be fun. This is your job. Ed, you've got to poke a little bit, you know what I mean? You've got to stoke the fire.
I'll always answer a question.
It's actually interesting about the groups as well. They're starting to get monetized. In some groups, you can give the hosts stars now, which is their way of, receiving revenue and income from the group as well.
Which we haven't done. We haven't monetized the group, and there's no intention to monetize the group because that flies in the face of everyone who signed up in there in the first place. And the whole point of it is, if we monetize the group, then someone else will start a free group for exactly the same reasons. So what's the point? And I don't want to for me, that it flies in the face of the purpose of the group, which is to provide that free support for freelancers. But so there is that aspect of monetizing. In fact, when we have Freelance Heroes Day, we have companies sponsor Freelance Heroes Day to help subsidize the tickets, and they say, great, so can we come in the group as well and talk about us? No, because you're not a freelancer. thanks for your money for lunch of the day. You're not allowed in the Freelance Heroes group, and it is entirely ring fenced from any commercial activity that we do. It will not be exposed to companies who look to sell into the freelance community. And I get approached frequently, all too frequently, by companies saying they want to do that, but again, I don't allow it. And it has to remain the purest tool that it can be, and that is for freelancers to, in a safe environment, in a safe, non-judgmental, productive and proactive environment, get support from other people who understand the journey that they're traveling on. That's its sole and only purpose, and that will never change.
Fantastic. So you might have a few more members then after this. It's interesting, actually. We're playing with times, Ed. When we do go live, sometimes in the morning, afternoon, late evening, that kind of thing. But it's great because these are evergreen. So in terms of we're on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter right now, but it will sit on our page as a video. And you get more views when it's watched back later on because people are working, right? People are freelancing, of course.
No, absolutely. I find it ironic when we do Freelance Heroes Day, we run it from 9 to 5, which of course is what a freelancer by and large doesn't do. But there you go. Yes.
Fantastic. Well, listen, all the best going forward, and you be mindful of your time as well, Ed, and your mental strength, because you will start to people will ask you for advice, and you inevitably start over deliver. And when you're watching that movie with Mrs. G, watch the movie, because you're gonna get it in the ear.
Oh, how many people listening and watching this watch a movie with their phone in their hand? Although my 7-year-old is firm to tell me when we're family movies, there's no technology, there's no phones, and that's and he's absolutely right there, of course. And I don't let it. I police when I go on Freelance Heroes. It doesn't control me. But at the same time, I get incredibly enthused by the people in there myself. It benefits me as a freelancer too.
Yes, you do. You take energy from them as well. Don't you get excited for them?
Absolutely.
Ed, thank you so much for joining us today. All the best with it going forward, and keep in touch, my friend.
No, the pleasure and the honor is mine. Congratulations. I look forward to the next 200 episodes.
Don't throw that at me, Ed. Don't throw that. Thank you very much, Ed. Cheers now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
There you go. That was our Ed. Fantastic stuff. And look at that. Bang on time. 28 minutes past, which gives me a couple of seconds just to thank people for. And Mark, if you're with us today, thanks so much and appreciate your comments. I know, as I've just said there, people are on different times. That's fine. Watch again, comment later on. I'm always jumping back into the groups later on. So that's great. It's been really interesting to see who's on and who's not at this time because we're over Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Right then, our last guest for today is our friend, Dave Lee from International Podcast, here, one of the co-founders. So let me bring our Dave in. Hello, sir.
Hey, Ian. How are you doing today?
I'm good. But before, I'm not going to ask you, can you hear me? Because as someone from a podcasting background, you'll have this nailed right now. Okay?
Exactly.
I'm not going to ask you if you've got earbuds in or if your audio is great, because you sound beautiful. Again.
Thank you.
And you're joining us from California?
Yes. Yeah, I'm on the west coast of the United States, out in Bakersfield, California, part of the most southern portion of the Central Valley of California, about 2 hours north of Los Angeles, as a matter of fact.
Southern portion of the Central Valley.
Yes, it's a little confusing, but if you saw it on a map, you'd see North, Central, and Southern California were right at the bottom portion of the Central Valley. So,
Bakersfield, is that where you are?
Yep, that's where I'm at.
And what's around there, Dave? From this little island over here in the UK, enlighten us.
Yeah, so Bakersfield is a very unique town. It is heavily developed with oil production and natural gas production. And Bakersfield and what's called the San Joaquin Valley of California is primarily dependent and one of the biggest distributors of agricultural production around the world. And so we have one of the largest agricultural productions with almonds and grapes and cotton and everything in between. But yeah, it's a nice little place. About 400,000 people in our little big city over here. And yeah, it's great. And Steve, the co-founder of International Podcast Day, lives about 45 minutes away from me in a smaller, quaint mountain community. So that's where we'll spend in most of International Podcast Day. Which is
today, tomorrow. What time are you? Where are you? What's going on? I don't even know. You've got up early for this, right?
Yeah. So it's actually obviously September 29th, 7:30 a.m. my time. But yeah, International Podcast Day is actually September 30th. And in order to really celebrate the entire world and provide all the voices and messages from around the world for podcasting, we have to start on September 29th, because when we start broadcasting at 4 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, it's already September 30th in the morning in Australia, in Japan, in the Oceania countries. And so, well, shoot, it'll be midnight in the UK as well. So we have to start our celebration early in order to capture the full international scope here. So yeah, we actually start broadcasting on the 29th, and we broadcast until September 30th, 9:30 p.m. the following day. So it's a 30+ hour adventure of amplifying other people's voices from around the world and sharing their messages and just trying to get as many people to hop online and share their story and celebrate as possible.
It's really exciting. I love it. I'd be on brand today if it was actual podcast day, but I might wait till tomorrow. Did I see you sipping on the International Podcast Day cup?
It is. This was actually a nice little gift from my wife. Let me get it there. She picked it up. It's just a little water tumbler. It's got her logo on there. We had a local vendor she reached out to over Instagram, and we actually went and picked it up yesterday. It was a nice little surprise. So yeah, this is my little cup. So just like you, I'm just wearing a casual, relaxing shirt right now. Tomorrow or later tonight, and tomorrow I'll have my International Podcast Day T-shirt on.
T-shirt, hoodie, trucker cap.
Yes, coffee mug. I have a tote bag back here. I don't have the hoodie yet, but maybe that's coming. I got a name badge too I can wear.
Oh, do you really? Well, you know what it is. It's you've just mentioned there. It's a celebration around the world and lots of different countries represented. I was fortunate enough to get involved in 2018, which was a great experience, and I loved it. And I still tell people about it now. I'm really passionate about it. I've actually got a WhatsApp group here on my phone. We've just been talking about it. That a group of podcasters that I'm in, and the community is fantastic around the world. And I'm sure there's other small splinter groups of WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups and that kind of thing. Since when was it? I've got it written down here. 2014. Is that when you founded it?
Yeah, so actually September 2014 was the original, well, at the time it was just National Podcast Day. And okay. Steve had come up with this idea in the fall of 2013, was like, hey, why don't we have a day to celebrate podcasters? I think he had heard a advertisement for like National Senior Citizens Day. And he's like, hey, we need a National Podcast Day. So at the time, we just put together a real short, like fragmented 6-hour celebration here in the United States. We did a couple YouTube hangouts. We did some Q&A. We did a few things here. And we're like, oh, that was fun. That was great. And then the day after, we had a lot of comments and some positive feedback from the likes of UK, Australia, New Zealand. Was like, hey, we're voices all over the world. And so we instantly rebranded to International Podcast Day. And so September 2015 was actually the first National Podcast Day. So this is going to be our 7th year broadcasting. And that goes to feature about 250 podcasters over those 7 years from just about 70 countries. And so, we kicked it off in September 2014, which happened to be the 10-year anniversary of podcasting, because Adam Curry and Dave Weiner, they launched their first podcast ever in September 2004. And so all sort of the stars kind of aligned to say, hey, this is this 10-year anniversary. Let's celebrate this. And it's just grown ever since. And like you said, the community associated with International Podcast Day has really made the event what it is. If we would have done our little 6 hours here in the United States and it would have, kind of pittered out, who knows? Maybe International Podcast Day isn't a thing, but the community grabbed hold of it. They took it and ran. And like you said, there's WhatsApp groups, there's private Facebook groups, and there's virtual meetups, and there's so much stuff going on. So yeah, that's a bit of the origin stories, a little bit more detail about where we are now and where we've come from.
Sorry, you can probably hear a little bit humming. This is the curse of podcasters, okay?
It is.
Technical equipment. The amount of times we've been going live, right? And I've ended up, Dave, with like things. We've got webcams. I've got a Rode Procaster, Pro here, Rode mics, webcam, all good. And then inevitably, just before we're going to go live, I had to run upstairs and just go live through like a webcam on the laptop. It's just crazy. So in terms of equipment, what are you using right now then?
So right now I'm using my trusty ATR 2100. It's been one of the microphones. I've never used another microphone since my father and I, also co-founder, we also co-host a podcast together. We started in 2007. I've always used, I guess I used a little Microsoft USB headset for maybe about a year, but I've switched over to an ATR 2100, been that sort of my go-to. I have the Logitech C920, which is the 1080p high def. So that's just what I have hooked up in my in my small little office here. If we go up to the International Podcast Day studio, we have the mixers, we have the better webcams, we have like multiple computers set up. And Steve's the tech guru behind International Podcast Day, so I usually don't touch it. I just tell him, what do I need to bring? Where do I need to set up? And I do all the social media and everything else. But yeah, I have a very, very simple setup. We use StreamYard just like you when we broadcast for International Podcast Day, and use Squadcast for recording our tech podcast.
You know, I much prefer, I've got a ATR, we call them Samsung Q2Us over here.
Yeah.
They sound great. The difference is not that much from like a Rode mic, but obviously, as you know, it plugs straight into a desktop, laptop. It's a USB microphone. Mm-hmm. So much easier, so much less panic from going through mixers.
It's so true. Yeah, it's one of those things when you get into podcasting, or whether maybe you're not a podcaster and you just do live streaming, right? And you just want to reach your audience in some different way. My brother actually streams through Facebook for one of his little music podcasts that he does. And yeah, him and his guys have different setups. You know, some of them are using the very simple setup like we are. Some of them have the Yetis, and the other people have the Rode mics, and other people are using, you know, the condenser mics with cloud lifters and all these other things. And it's like, you just got to find something that works for you, right? And if you want the complicated setup, maybe you're a gearhead and you love that. But for someone like me who just wants to plug and play, the quality sounds good. You can do a little post-production if you need to. But otherwise, yeah, there's so many options out there for any sort of producer of any sort of content out there. You can find a setup that works for you.
Yep, in terms of setups that work for me, you can probably hear a little bit of interference. Now I'll plug my mains into the computer. This is honestly, this happens to me when you're going to go live over a certain period. I went live for almost 9 hours on April's Fool's Day with 16 speakers back to back, and I was absolutely shattered, Dave. I was so tired because you're listening all the time. You're really wired. So how does it work for you guys? You know, how do you split the time zones and the speakers across the different countries?
Yeah, it's fairly interesting that this year we're featuring 60 different podcasters from 26 different countries, and we actually scaled back our broadcast this year. The last 4 years we've done anywhere from 32 to 34 hours, and this year we've scaled it back to 24 hours. And so yeah, all of the testing beforehand, making sure all of our speakers are familiar with our platform, how to go live, the process behind that. Yeah, as far as like splitting the time, Steve and I will take our breaks. Sometimes he will do the introduction. Sometimes he'll sit through an entire broadcast. Because 55 minutes, let's be honest, we do our broadcast and we allow our presenters 55 minutes. That's a long time to present. And sometimes they're individuals. Sometimes there's a panel, which can, last much longer than 55 minutes if we gave them the time. But yeah, you have to be behind the mic. You have to be listening. You have to be engaging with whoever's in the chat room and whatever. And it can be very exhausting, but it's also very rewarding because you have to pay attention. You have to focus on the content that they're delivering, how that can translate to your community. So yeah, we do a lot of the sharing of the load. The nice part is that we're actually taking a 5-hour break this year so we can actually get some solid sleep collectively. It used to be the last few years, I would go all the way through like 5 a.m. And so we'd start broadcasting at 4 p.m. I'd finally get to sleep about 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. 3-4 hours sleep, no big deal. Pop back up and do it again. But yeah, we've had a nice little sort of give and take, a little cost sharing when it comes to the live broadcast.
I'm just going to pull my mains up while I talk and then keep putting it back in. This is
This is a real thing. I mean, for International Podcast Day, it doesn't matter. You can test with all 60 of our speakers. Everything works perfect. Same with you. You can have your setup. And when things go live, it's live. It's not we're not talking traditional media. We're not talking like these big fancy studios. It's things happen, wiring happens, interference. Sometimes your broadcast doesn't hit your website, sometimes it doesn't hit your Facebook page, whatever it is. And you just have to roll with it. And I think that's ultimately what those, at least in the podcast space, are quickly understanding, is that nothing ever works. I mean, Steve and I are 13 years into our podcast career, and we still have issues with our recordings, and we still have issues with I couldn't get this like little buzz or this little feed or this little little twitch out of your recording, so let's tweak on it. So it's always a work in progress. Absolutely.
I'd say what is, it really polishes your skills. I'll do keynote speaking, or I'll sit on panels, or do live events, at events when we could actually do that physically. And it just seems to really polish your skills, because everything goes wrong like this. When you're in an event, you just talk to people. It's an absolute doddle. It's no problem at all. You've got no tech to watch. You haven't got things like throwing up Rob's comment here and stuff like that. You're not monitoring chat rooms. You're not worrying about the tech. Whereas, in person, it's no bother now.
Yeah, the in-person things is, I mean, the worst that happens, right, is that a microphone goes dead and somebody that's working the event runs and gets it for you while you keep presenting, right? And even if like you're presenting, there's a slideshow and it's not an issue, tech support comes up. You don't have to worry about anything. You can keep on conversating. And to your point with the chat room, it's a very interesting thing, because for our live event, we encourage everybody to head over to the chat room, engage. And one thing we always talk to our presenters and podcasters about is don't get distracted by the chat room, because that can be a very distracting. It can derail you from your conversation. It can derail you from your thought process. And so if you have the opportunity to engage, and if you want to take questions and answers, be a part of that. But yeah, the live broadcasting platform streaming is very unique. It's easy to get distracted. It's easy to get derailed from your thought process. So, but yeah, there's so much going on behind the scenes, and I appreciate anybody who can stream to multiple platforms, into a website and social media sites, and manage all of that, because there's a lot going on in trying to keep the focus on the conversation as well.
Yeah, there really is. And I'll tell you what it is, that since the pandemic, obviously lots of people have started doing things like this. Even you mentioned StreamYard that we're going through right now. They're changing functionality. They're allowing it now, so you can go on your phone. You can do little bits and pieces. I think you can actually drag people around now. I could probably drag you and put you over there.
Yeah. The shifting of the video tiles. Yeah, it's some cool things.
Yeah, there's lots we can do. And I'm scared now. I have to put you back, Dave. That really
yeah. It felt weird right there. It felt weird.
But yeah, there's loads of stuff happening, and the tech is changing, the software is changing due to the pandemic. Have you experienced that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a number of podcasters that have thought, hey, this is a great time to utilize something like StreamYard, or use YouTube Live, or even stream straight to Periscope, or take part in Facebook Live. And I think that's something that, as they know that more individuals are staying home, that there's more people interested in watching that stuff, that I think consumption behaviors, and this is one of the big things that is more general, sort of a general blanket for the podcast and podcasting industry, is that our listening behaviors have changed, right? So less people are traveling to work, less people are working in the office, and the more people working at home. And so you have to adjust your behavior on how you listen. And whether that's listening through smart speakers, whether that's listening through your phone, a lot of people are moving to the desktop, since they're working from their desktops from home instead of work, because work maybe blocks different sites. And so the behaviors behind listening has really changed. And I think that has really adjusted from podcasters and content producers, is let's see where I can grab a little bit more audience. Where can I add a little bit more flair to the community? And if that's streaming to Facebook, maybe I get 2 or 3 or 4 extra people tuning in and commenting and interacting. So yeah, it's definitely shifted. I know since the pandemic hit, I have attended 3 off the top of my head, 3 podcast conferences, essentially, that have been exclusively online. And those were events that would have been in person. And I think they've all gone through Zoom, which has been a great platform for a lot of people to use. Really engaging, and a nice transition from speaker to speaker. But yeah, it's definitely changed the way events are being held. And I know one of the cool things that organizers of the events are doing is just a pay what you can sort of model. And so you $200, you can drop $20, you can drop $60 if you want. And so I think that's one of the cool options, is that there's very low access to get into these things, and a very low threshold of income that you need to just kind of to get in there and get, anywhere from 8 to 12 hours of cool, interesting information from a lot of different people from all sorts of different industries.
It's interesting that Rob's just put a comment up, and Rob delivers training. And of course, now, they're delivering a lot of training through Teams now. So actually, not just the way we consume content in terms of podcasts or good streams, actually work as well. People have actually took to delivering things through the likes of Teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I had Teams on my work computer for 18 months, never opened it. And then once March here in the United States happened, and they're like, hey, we're sending everybody home, or if you're in the office, the only way you can meet with 10, 15 people at a time is through Teams. All of a sudden, we were testing Teams, we're figuring out, we all bought webcams, which I'm surprised we were able to get, but we did, because those were a dime a dozen back in March and April. But yeah, we use training exclusively at Teams, or we use Teams exclusively for training at work. We do a lot of, I work in local government, and so we're able to correspond and have conversations with state agencies and local agencies and different community service districts to collaborate. And I think it's been a great platform. I think there has been the educational space, I think, has been inundated with video consumption and that new method of teaching. So I know that they're feeling burnt out, but I know a lot of people in the space are utilizing Zoom and Teams for those training mechanisms, for opportunities to collaborate. And it looks different, but it's also just as effective for at least my experiences. I'm not sure what the individual in the chat what their experience has been like, but for the most part, it's been a nice addition. And you kind of get those people that want to be on video. You get the people that don't want to be on video. You have people that chime in, the whole time, and there's people that don't make any comments at all. But that's a general work meeting. That's a general training tool right there. So yeah, it's definitely shifted and changed the way I think a lot of us are doing business, and it just adds another layer that we can incorporate down the road.
Yeah, sorry, just going back to, could you hear me okay there, Dave? Yeah, madness.
Yep, yeah.
Just going back to international podcasting then, in terms of some of the success stories or some of the speakers, podcasters from different countries, what's really stuck out for you then across the years in all these different countries?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting when we look back, and it's hard to kind of go back 7 full years and kind of pick your brain about what's happening, because as I mentioned, 250 podcasters, 70 different countries. But some of the ones that I've been very impressed with has been the Spanish speaking podcasts have really boomed over the last 3-4 years. And we've been mindful of that. We've been incorporating Spanish speaking sessions in our broadcast. And so we've seen a big surge and a big, listening consumption change in the likes of Argentina, Colombia, a lot of the Central American and Latin America countries. One of the areas that I find to be really growing and being fascinating, there's two. There's Africa. There's a lot of African nations out there, Zambia, Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, Egypt, where they're just growing exponentially day by day, month by month. And I think we've had, each of the last 3 years, we've highlighted and featured some of our African podcaster friends, and there's events going on there like Africa Podfest and Podfest Cairo, and there's all sorts of different events going on that have spawned out of this growth. And it's been a need, and it's been and listeners have wanted this, and it's just not podcasters. And I think that's an important thing to make. It's just not those making and producing their shows. It's the listeners that are in the audiences out there that want more. They want to attend live events. They want to see other shows on display. In India, for something that continues to massively grow. And one of the really cool areas that we've noticed over the past 5 years that grow are the Oceania countries and the island communities. We have individuals from Haiti, Trinidad and Tobago, and the British Virgin Islands this year. We're having individuals from Malaysia. And so it's been pretty incredible, Ian. When I think back to some of the highlights, I mean, you can pick 5 or 6 great events out of every year, right? And it's something that is absolutely outstanding, something that's different. One of the unique parts this year, and and this is the great part about being part of International Podcast Day and looking at international voices, is that we have a group made up of individuals from Serbia, Italy, Canada, and the United States. And this is not anything that was ever on my radar. And this is why I love this event. This is why I love podcasting in general, is their title is called The Podcast is a Medium for Conveying Think Tanks Ideas, Perspectives from Both Sides of the Atlantic. And sort of what their goal is to look at these European Union think tanks and how they're using podcasts to amplify what their message is and also how to expand their audiences. And that's something that I would have never considered. I don't work in the industry. I know think tanks are a big thing, both domestically here in the United States and internationally, but that's sort of the level of conversation that we're going to have at this level. And so happy to feature them, but it's pretty interesting that, you know, year by year, the schedule kind of makes up itself, and it becomes reflective of the podcast community. And we give our presenters pretty much the leniency to speak and share whatever they want to. And that really develops into a really cool, unique experience year in and year out.
Can I have a little bit of an iTunes rant with you, Dave?
Yeah, go for it.
So you've probably seen lots of people approach you, podcast promoters, predominantly from the Far East, will download your show, subscribe to you, leave you reviews for money, which then get you into the charts. And you might have seen yourself, somebody with 6 episodes and, half a dozen reviews, but now the number one in their particular genre. And it's frustrating for podcasters, for indie casters who don't have the big shows, the broadcast studios, producers, guest bookers, all the money behind them to pay to play, if you like. Have you come across this in the podcasting world when you're talking to people? Is this a concern?
It is a concern, and I know there's a lot of individuals that are in the podcast hosting space and that are working behind the scenes at the more global level, you know, with like Edison Research and some, like I mentioned, some of the other big podcast hosts. And there is a lot of work to be done, right? I know that we have gone through and had some certification processes for a lot of these podcast hosting companies to, you know, more finely tune in and dial in the amount of downloads. And you're right, the podcast promoters out there, it's a really frustrating aspect, because I think instead of seeing the podcasting space as an opportunity to launch into something new, use a different style of media to capture the audience and grow your brand and grow your audience and to build your community, people are simply trying to use this as a leverage to get their name up the charts. And it's frustrating, because for individuals that have been independent for a number of years, that are still trying to get their message out there, trying to grow their audiences, and you can still mess with the algorithms and you can still manipulate a lot of the background to get somebody who has 2 episodes to be ranked number 1 in a category, or somebody who is, doesn't have that great of a quality of show or something, all of a sudden peaks at the, in a top 10. But it's very frustrating. I'm not sure exactly what needs to be done, what sort of, metrics or what sort of, punishments need to be doled out for kind of these things. But it's interesting because I can't remember, there was an individual who actually reached out that responded to one of these podcast promoters, and he wrote a complete article about it and sort of the process that they go through in order to kind of use the ranking system to their advantage. And so, yeah, it's very unfortunate. I get frustrated when you hear about these podcast promoters. I guarantee Ian, I probably get 5 or 6 a week. It's like, just through our International Podcast Day social media feeds or emails or contacts through our website to say, hey, I can get you ranked. I can do this. I can do that. But it's definitely something that I continue to find frustration with.
Yeah, I really do as well. Now I'm getting similar numbers. A lot through LinkedIn, actually. People connect with you on LinkedIn and then just go straight into your inbox or slide into your DMs now is the term.
Yeah, exactly.
They're straight into your messages, and again, and I've trolled them as well. I've kind of asked questions upon questions, how do you do it? What do you do? They don't really ask what, how, or what, or how. Maybe they've got some emulation tools. I don't know what they're doing, but it is frustrating. It is frustrating, and I've heard a lot of podcasters feeling the same sort of pain as well. And of course, what we also have to put up with as indie casters is the state of the nation in terms of celebrities or people with large email lists or people with large YouTube subscriber lists or whatever now kind of coming across into podcasting as well, and you've got them to deal with, and you're kind of lost in this sea now because it's in vogue to have a podcast. Everybody has one, and then we've been going so long. But what do you do, Dave? Just keep on going, keep on trucking.
Yeah, and that's the difficult part because podcasting was born out of the independence, right? It was a branch off from traditional media, and let's come up with something new and different that's exciting and enticing for a lot of people. And once people, even around 2012, 2014, that big growth where traditional media started releasing their radios, broadcasts as podcasts, and you had celebrities and stuff like that. And just a word of encouragement to all the independents: you have to keep going. I mean, the space was crowded even before they were in here. The celebrities and the big YouTube's mailing list and big subscriber list, and they're still going to be here in the future. And I think if you can find a way to stand out, if you can continue to invest in your community and invest in those relationships, I think you're going to continue to grow. But it's definitely a frustrating point because you're not only battling, Ian, with just audio in the sense of podcast, you're also battling with audiobooks, and you're battling with Netflix, and you're battling with Hulu and on demand, and you're battling with sports. And so there's this constant need to try and get eyes and ears onto products. And so as podcasters, we need to be aware of that and say, hey, how can I be a little bit different? How can I reach my audience in a different way? And I think if you can, to be honest, for a lot of these individuals that have, 500,000 subscribers, that doesn't mean they have 500,000 people interested in what they're doing, right? Just because they have an email list of, 160,000 people doesn't mean that 160,000 people are actually reading those emails and engaging, right? And so it's all about the community that you build, how much engagement you can build around them, and how much of a relationship can you build with them. Because I think ultimately that's going to give you the best results long term than just having this massive audience that really doesn't engage, that really doesn't interact with you.
Yeah, and it is. I love niches, Dave. Whether that niche is a particular genre, subject of podcast, or a niche that's quite local. Like for instance, I'm in the northeast of England here. It's nice. You have a nice community, so therefore, am I the podcast of choice? Hopefully, or you watch it. Are you the podcast of choice in that region? And there's room for people as well. And we don't have to try to have global domination, do we?
No, you don't. Yeah, I mean, I think we all want to be dominant in our space, but that just looks. You can define dominance in any way you like. Just like as a podcaster, you can define success. What does success look like for you? Is it if your success is 500 downloads, if it's 1,000 downloads, if it's reaching 50 episodes, if it's having a weekly conversation and a nice small little email list? Great. But yeah, I think we all strive to have dominance. It's just how you envision that. And if you want to be that next global dominant star or voice, aim for that. But if you want to be dominant, like you said, in the northeast of England, if I want to be dominant in the west coast of California, you work on that and expand from there. Because I heard a really great conversation with Chris Kremitzos, who was founder of Podfest over here in the United States, and he talked real briefly about everyone that has big success now, they had to start somewhere. Right. And like he talked about like Rachel Ray, who's a chef and a personality here in the United States, and where she started. And, it's almost like when people hit the big time, they think that, oh, they just struck it easy or they got lucky with it. No, we've all had to go through our hurdles. We've all had to go through our successes and our failures. And so, yeah, start small, continue to grow out big, and just sort of define your success and define how you want to be dominant. And I think pursue that, but have obviously like tangible goals and realistic goals and where you want to go.
Overnight success that's took like 9 years or something.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I mean, you go viral. That doesn't mean that you're popular or that you've made it. It's just a flash in the pan. So, but yeah, overnight success takes 9 years. That's a really great way of putting it. I think that's more realistic than how most people see popularity.
So what's next? But just before you go, then obviously International Podcast Day 2020 is just around the corner. Before it's even finished, I'm going to ask you what's happening for 2021. Is the plan to grow this? What are you looking for, Dave? Is it more hours, more countries? What does it look like?
Yeah, so year by year, we sort of adapt to what's going on in the industry. This year, we took a different approach. We scaled back from 32 hours to 24 hours. But
Okay.
one of our focus was get more panels, get more voices across. And so we strategically looked out for individuals in the Caribbean, people in the European nations, individuals that could put together panels that have great insights. So we have one about building community, but it's building community from 4 different perspectives. It's from a podcaster's perspective, it's from a marketer's perspective, and someone who has a really good Instagram, like social media influence. And so they're going to be there. One other thing we added this year is that we invited podcasters from different countries to pre-record some sessions to be a part of International Podcast Day. So in addition to our 20 plus countries that were streaming live, I was able to get countries like Finland, the Dominican Republic, Canada, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt to contribute their own shorter 15, 20-minute broadcast so that we can provide additional sort of supplement our live content with some recorded content. So during our downtime, we can add more time to our website. We can add more featured videos to our YouTube channel as well, just to constantly sort of feed that desire to have information and details out there. So as far as 2021, we're looking at expanding that even more. One thing that I do want to do is, even though International Podcast Day, right, is only really a 48-hour window of a celebration, let's be honest, we pretty much celebrate year round. So we have a day, but we celebrate all year round. And so one thing I want to do is kind of what you do, Ian, is broadcast every month through all of our social media channels and through our website, and just feature different international podcasters from around the world month by month, and sort of keep that momentum going. And so that it's just not a shock to the system when you realize that you have to do, 32 hours of live broadcasting. But yeah, trying to find and connect different voices from around the industry, and just create the most representative schedule and event as possible. So that's sort of what we're looking like for 2021. I'm sure as things get closer, we'll have people in the community give us ideas. We'll bounce some concepts around what works and what doesn't work. But that's sort of the big thing. Yeah, we always want more voices, more countries. And I think the most we've had was 28 countries represented in a 33-hour period. So maybe we can shoot for 30 next year, and maybe that's a goal.
You guys are wild, but I love it. I'm really thankful for what you've brought to the table, and it's amazing because you're not on the outside, you're on the inside, right? But you probably don't realize how many people are talking about it or how many people love it, because I often say this with podcasts, and it's interesting. People listen to your content, but unless they reach out and tell you, you don't know what they've listened. Yes, you know the download numbers, but you don't know who. I often say it's like an author as well. Someone could write a book, push it out. You don't know who it's in the hands of sometimes. So that's why I really wanted you to come on today, Dave, just to try to highlight what you're doing, but also thank you for what you're doing as well, and give you some acknowledgement, because it's great stuff. And I wish as listeners, we would tell the content producers that a bit more, give them more feedback. Do you know what I mean? Because it can be it's like a lonely journey sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely it is. And that's one of the big things that we try and push at International Podcast Day is, great. I want you to tune into our live broadcast. I want to have you tune in to see what our presenters and speakers from around the world are talking about. But ultimately, International Podcast Day is about celebrating how you want to celebrate, right? And one of the big things is we encourage all listeners to reach out, whether it's sending a nice tweet, whether it's sending an email, giving a rating review, anything you can do as an audience member and a listener to support what your independent podcaster is doing. That's what you should be doing on International Podcast Day. So yeah, finding different unique ways. Maybe it's maybe as listeners, you want to organize a virtual meetup with the audience of your favorite podcast. I've seen that happen where there's individuals that love this entertainment or this comic book podcast or whatever it may be. They organize their own little meetup just for the listeners, and I think that's a really unique way of celebrating. So yeah, that's one of the cool things we always like to see is how individuals sort of take the day and really build in and talk about how find ways of themselves for celebrating throughout the day.
Excellent. Well, in terms of what we did, we've got you on today, and we wanted to celebrate it a little bit as well. And we'll be watching across the next, well, maybe not like all the hours, but we can always watch it on catch up, can't we?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, tune in live. I mean, that's a long time because we're like we're spanning 36 plus hours. But yeah, we save all of our things on YouTube. We have all of our broadcasts saved up on our website. There's always a chance to catch in on that. And so yeah, I want to appreciate and thank you for sharing the message here, and congratulations on episode 200 of Industry Angel. That's amazing, man. Keep it going. You're doing amazing work up there in the Northeast.
Thanks, Dave. I really appreciate it. So where can we find internationalpodcastday.com?
Yeah, that's the best place to go. We have widgets for all of our social media. We have our entire schedule. We have all of our speakers featured over there, and that's just a good, nice little dropping point. And you can connect with us on any of those platforms.
Okay, well, I need to press some buttons at least. You go and rest. Okay, you get yourself prepared. Do what you need to do, and best of luck. I hope you enjoy. I'll be checking in across the next 24 hours or whatever it is. And thanks so much for bringing this to our community, Dave.
Yeah, not a problem, Ian. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Cheers, Dave.
Cheers.
So there you go. That's us done for today then. 4 great speakers, 4 very diverse speakers, lots of different subject matter. As always, I've been happy, I've been sad, I've been angry, I've been smiley, as always. And hope you have as well, because this is what I want to do, is generate a little bit of thought from you guys, some comments, shake a tree a little bit from some topics that we might have to put a bit more of a spotlight on, in terms of maybe what Anneka was talking about earlier on, and the excluded 3 million. Okay, let me know how that went. Just as what I've just said to Dave there, feedback is amazing, and I'm looking forward to doing this again. On Thursday, I will be going live for Invest South Tyneside from this very room, I think. But until then, I should keep in touch for the next live broadcast. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for everybody who's watching again and not live. So really appreciate you going back. And if you are watching on catch up, if you like, leave some comments. Let us know what you think about the speakers. Okay, then you all take care and stay safe, and I'll see you very soon. Thanks so much for watching.